Welcome to the English effect. You know, when we think about the real cost of doing business, we usually look straight at the spreadsheet.
Right, yeah. We're looking at things like office rent or payroll.
Exactly, the predictable stuff. But in today's deep dive, we're exploring a massive hidden cost. According to recent research out of the UK, workplace conflict costs companies around $36.4 billion a year.
Oh, wow. That's just a staggering number.
And that's just in one country. We're talking about lost hours and, plummeting productivity, all because colleagues can't figure out how to disagree effectively.
Yeah, and a huge portion of that cost isn't even from loud shouting matches. It's from those quiet, simmering disagreements that just derail everything.
Right. So today we're doing something really practical. We're looking at the life cycle of a corporate disagreement. And more importantly, we're focusing on the business English vocabulary you need to navigate it.
Our goal is to give you the vocabulary to communicate with authority, to transform a destructive fight into actual problem solving.
So let's jump right in. Phase 1, identifying the conflict. Before you can fix a problem, you have to name it, right? But without sounding too emotional.
Exactly. Like, let's say the marketing director and the sales director are arguing about the budget. If you just say, hey, stop fighting, you sound like a parent scolding kids.
Yeah, that puts everyone on the defensive immediately.
Which is bad leadership.
Yeah.
Instead, our sources suggest using the phrase point of contention. You step in and say, it appears the budget is our main point of contention.
A point of contention. I love how professional that sounds. It just lowers the temperature in the room.
It really does. You're taking the emotion out of it and putting the focus on the business issue. You're identifying the specific thing blocking progress.
But let me push back a little here. What if they are just arguing over a font on a slide deck? Like, is it really that deep?
Well, you'd think it's just a font, right? But those surface-level squabbles are almost always just the tip of the iceberg.
The tip of the iceberg. So, meaning the small, visible part of a much larger, hidden problem.
Precisely. If two directors are arguing for 20 minutes about a color choice, they aren't actually arguing about the color. You have to find the underlying motives.
So the hidden cause driving the behavior, right?
Yeah. The underlying issue might be a power struggle, or maybe someone feels disrespected. If you only fix the slide deck, the underlying frustration is still there.
And when leaders are constantly at odds, meaning they are always in conflict or disagreeing, it just stops the company from moving forward.
Absolutely. Being at odds kills productivity.
Mm.
And if you let those underlying issues sit there, they don't magically go away. They escalate.
Which brings us to phase 2, tensions rising. Let's say someone makes a mistake. In business English, we say they drop the ball.
Right. To drop the ball means to fail to do your job or mishandle a task.
So someone drops the ball, they forget an important email. If the team is already at odds, that tiny mistake escalates. It turns into a major crisis.
It acts like fuel on a fire. To escalate means to intensify. A missed email escalates into a standoff, and suddenly you're in a meeting dedicated to blamestorming.
Blamestorming. I mean, that is such a great descriptive word.
It's the dark opposite of brainstorming. Instead of coming up with solutions, the team is just trying to put the blame on someone else.
Nobody wants to take responsibility. And during blamestorming, you start hearing microaggressions and put-downs.
Yes, a put-down is exactly what it sounds like. It's a remark meant to humiliate someone, to put them down.
And microaggressions are those subtle, sometimes unintentional insults, right? They slowly chip away at your confidence.
Exactly. And biologically, this is where things get really interesting. When we hear those put-downs, it triggers something called lizard listening.
Lizard listening. Okay, break that down for me. What is that?
Well, our brains are wired for survival. When you get a hostile email, your amygdala, the oldest part of your brain, treats it like a physical threat.
Oh, like a fight or flight response.
Exactly. Your heart rate goes up and you lose access to logic. You're listening with your lizard brain, which means you only hear threats, not solutions.
That explains so much. When people are defensive, you can give them perfectly logical data and they just reject it.
Because their lizard brain thinks you're a predator. And our sources brought up this amazing comparison with primates. When humans have a conflict, we create distance, right? We hide in our offices.
Yeah, we avoid eye contact in the hallway.
But primates do the opposite. After a fight, monkeys actually use intimacy, like grooming, to decrease their stress. They repair the social bond immediately.
So obviously, we're not going to groom our coworkers.
No, please don't do that.
But the business equivalent is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share someone else's feelings.
Right. Empathy signals to your colleague that you are not a threat. It calms their lizard brain so you can finally solve the problem.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for phase 3 here. Empathy takes a lot of energy. If I hate conflict, why not just avoid it?
It's so tempting, isn't it? Just keep the peace. But bottling up your frustrations is incredibly dangerous in a workplace.
To bottle up, that means to hide your feelings instead of expressing them.
Yes. The problem is, if you bottle up stress, it ruins your mental health. And professionally, those suppressed feelings eventually explode.
You end up yelling at someone over a jammed printer when you're actually mad about a project from last month.
Exactly. And when an entire office avoids conflict, you get groupthink.
Groupthink, that's a huge vocabulary word for leaders. That's when everyone just nods and agrees with a bad idea just to keep things peaceful, right?
Yeah. Nobody wants to be the one causing friction, so they all agree with the boss, even if the software has a fatal bug.
And then the product launches and fails. So avoiding conflict is actually detrimental. Detrimental means harmful or damaging.
It is highly detrimental. You can't innovate if everyone is terrified of disagreeing.
So we're in a tough spot. Blamestorming is bad, but bottling it up in groupthink is worse. How do we actually fix this?
That is phase 4, stepping up and solving it. Good managers don't wait for a crisis. They nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud, meaning stop a problem immediately, early on, before it grows.
Exactly. And our sources suggest using the Harvard Negotiation Project steps. First, separate the people from the problem.
Which goes back to the point of contention. You don't say you're lazy, you say the timeline is our point of contention.
Right. Second, focus on underlying interests. Third, find options for mutual gain. And fourth, use objective criteria, like data, not just who yells the loudest.
It's about reframing the issue. To reframe means to change how a problem is presented. You turn a fight into a puzzle you solve together.
And reframing usually requires a compromise. Both sides make small concessions. You give up a little to help the company.
There was also this great tool mentioned called the evil logic check.
I love this one. When you are furious, pause and ask yourself, do I really believe my colleague is an evil person trying to destroy the company?
And the answer is almost always no. They're just under different pressures. It builds empathy instantly.
The other tool is elephant cards. It comes from the phrase, the elephant in the room. A big, obvious problem everyone is ignoring.
Some companies literally use physical cards. If you see groupthink happening, you throw an elephant card on the table. It's a safe way to point out the issue.
But, sometimes people are just too at odds. They can't fix it themselves. That's when you need a mediator.
A mediator, a neutral third party who comes in to help communication.
Their job is to help the team find common ground. Finding common ground means discovering shared goals that everyone agrees on.
So we've navigated the whole cycle. We named the point of contention, we stopped the blamestorming, we used a mediator to find common ground.
Which brings us to the final phase, the silver lining. Because conflict, when handled well, is actually a red flag.
A red flag is an early warning sign. It shows you a weakness in your strategy before it becomes a disaster.
Healthy debate tests your ideas. If your team debates a proposal, the final plan is going to be so much stronger.
And culturally, when you finally resolve it, you get to bury the hatchet, meaning you choose to forgive, end the argument, and move forward.
Burying the hatchet is how you clear the air. You get rid of all that awkward, lingering tension in the office.
Clearing the air feels so good. And once the air is clear, you don't just have a compromise. You can reach a consensus.
Consensus is vital. A compromise means people gave something up, but a consensus is a collective agreement. The whole group accepts the plan and supports it.
Which leads to the holy grail of leadership buy-in. You hear CEOs talk about this all the time. We need buy-in.
Yes. Buy-in means genuine, active support for a decision. And you can't force buy-in.
Right. You can't just order people to care.
Exactly. Buy-in comes from healthy conflict. When employees are allowed to debate without fear of put-downs, they feel respected. They help build the solution.
So learning these words, knowing how to nip something in the bud or reach a consensus, it transforms your workplace.
It truly does. It's the difference between a team paralyzed by groupthink and a team energized by buy-in.
So to leave you with a final thought from today's deep dive, take a look at your own weekly meetings. Are you seeing healthy debate?
Or is everyone just silently nodding along, suffering from detrimental groupthink? Because the answer to that question might dictate your company's future.
It really might. We want to hear how this plays out for you. Practice your new business English vocabulary in the comments.
Yeah, tell us about a time you had to nip something in the bud or find common ground.
And if this deep dive helped you today, please like, share, and subscribe to The English Effect. Keep practicing, keep communicating, and we'll see you next time.